is a work that is published by an iconic bookstore in my hometown of San Francisco called City Lights. Many of you may be familiar with it if you know Allen Ginsberg and the Beats. City Lights bookstore in North Beach in San Francisco is as iconic as it comes. So when Carlos told me what he was planning, I said, okay, my job is to represent the West Coast here in my hometown. As you can see, Carlos, well, Carlos knows this, but I teach at Sacred Heart Cathedral Prep, which is a Catholic school right in the heart of San Francisco. Carlos, tell us a little bit about your school. This is important to us to mention, not because we're promoting our schools, but this shapes the way we work together and the way we share information with our colleagues as well. My school is an urban private Catholic school. It's very diverse, but it is a private school. Carlos, you're at Sprayberry.
Yeah, Sprayberry is a public school about 30 miles north of Atlanta in the suburbs. But it's a very a student with a kind of a mix of Latinos, African Americans, white people, Asian Americans, kind of United States of America, mixed incomes. And what's important to this poem is I teach my AP English class in Lang and Lit in Spanish as well, as there's kids in there who are becoming fluent in Spanish, having started in 8th grade, and there's students in there who are already fluent but want to become confident in being AP and honor students. All right. So
and of course, being a Catholic school in California, we have a lot of Latino students at my school too, but we're also a Pacific Rim city, so we have a heavy Asian population. We each have pretty diverse student populations. Poetry works well for both of us because, as Ellen Bryant Voigt says in this terrific text, which I know you can't really see very well here, The Art of Syntax, poetry is music. That's what it is. So what I'm here to present this evening is the way we can use a rhetorical approach to poetry as an entry point for engaging our students. And then Carlos is going to take it deep. So Carlos, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's play two. Let's do two.
He was born ready, and he's got his Marlins hat on, so I'm going to put on my Giants hat. I got so excited when Carlos told me about his choice of poems that I literally had to make a pilgrimage across town to this iconic bookstore. If you've been to San Francisco, you probably know Lawrence Ferlinghetti, the founder of this bookstore, friend of the Beats, poet, the first and only poet laureate of my hometown, San Francisco. City Lights it's in a high traffic intersection in North Beach in San Francisco, and he's always used, now Ferlinghetti is no longer with us, we lost him in February, but for decades, City Lights has used that upper level to make political statements. As you can see, this series of banners, this was about a year ago, this image, and the last one says, "Stop the deportation." So it's always topical, it's always edgy. And Ferlinghetti was a poet. So one of his works is that small volume you see there. I have it right here in my hand, Poetry as Insurgent Art. So I decided to get on my bike. I cycled down, you see the Transamerica Pyramid behind me, to City Lights, and I climbed those stairs. This was probably about a month ago, to the poetry room to choose a work that I thought would complement the one Carlos is going to share with us this evening. And I found several things of Lawrence Ferlinghetti's that intrigued me. In Poetry as Insurgent Art, the title work of that small volume I showed you, Ferlinghetti says, and this is just a small piece of the longer poem on insurgent art: if you would be a great poet, we're going to use this series of ideas as kind of our working thesis for tonight. Strive to transcribe the consciousness of the race. Be subversive, constantly questioning reality and the status quo. Decide if a poem is a question or a declaration, a meditation or an outcry. And I love this one. I chose to end with this here because I think it's a bridge to where we're headed. See the rose through world-colored glasses. The entry point poem that I want to share with you this evening is an example of seeing the rose through world-colored glasses. The rose will be what you see behind me, a baseball game. And Ferlinghetti in this poem, well, I won't tell you more than that because I want to show you how I would do this with my students. You know, those of us who teach AP language and composition are all well aware that there are no texts, there's no course content in that course. It's all skills. So our content is skills based. We don't teach books. We often say we teach skills. But as Jackie Stallworth pointed out last week at this Mosaic session, even in AP Lit, we teach skills, not books. We use the books to help students master skills. So when we think about teaching poetry rhetorically, that's almost backwards. What works actually better for me is to remember that I'm using poetry to teach rhetoric. So that helps me with a poem like this. And I'll give you an example of how I would do that with this Ferlinghetti poem. One of the reasons I like this approach is that, you know, again, poetry it's music. I mean, really, we always read with our ears anyway. Our eyes take in the text from the page, and then something happens in our brains that is quite complex, actually. Our brains convert what we see on the page to sounds in our head, which then gets converted into images, and you know, that's pretty complicated processing. One of the things about poetry is that shape matters. Poets know they create a shape for a reason. It's a rhetorical choice. For students, though, sometimes that shape can be a distraction. And when you do read alouds in class, you'll often hear them pause in awkward places, and they'll try to be, they might be trying to follow the rhythm of a poem, and they might miss the meaning. It can complicate for students. So the exercise that I like to begin with when I'm adopting a rhetorical approach to poetry in my classroom is to take the shape away from the work itself. And what I'm going to do is what I would do with my classes here. And I'm going to ask you to participate in the chat. We're going to focus just at the diction level on a Ferlinghetti poem. And I'm not going to tell you the title of it. I've given you some clue as to the theme, but you'll pick up on that as we go as well. It'll be pretty obvious. We're going to go way, 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 way beyond the forest here. We don't want the forest or the shape of the poem to distract us from theme. We're going to go right down into the trees and actually into the individual leaves and start to see what we notice and what we think without not even at the syntax level, but at the diction level. These next two slides, I'm going to just put them up and leave them on the screen and ask you to respond to these two questions in the chat. What do you notice? And what do you think? Very simple questions. And all these are Ferlinghetti's diction choices from this work. They are in chronological order, but it certainly does not represent the entire poem. So I'll give you 30 seconds or so to just take these in, again, in the chat. What do you notice? What do you think?
Very nice. Alfonso Correa says the national pastime. All right.
It once was. It's hard to know what our nation's pastime is today, but I think it might involve rhetoric.
It's on Netflix.
And here's the other half. Again, this is just in chronological order, and it certainly doesn't represent the entire poem.
Jennifer Fletcher in the house. Just saw her comments. All right.
Why Ezra Pound, indeed.
Yeah.
Baseball and immigrants, baseball and ethnicity. So you can see, and yes, beer drinking, there's a lot going on here that would entice and engage almost any student.
I won't tell them the secret, but there isn't even an allusion to Pablo Neruda in your poem. All right.
Somebody, I didn't catch that. Somebody questioned the use of rounds 3 times. I did choose to list those, and I would with my students as well. Everybody loves a Blarney bartender, right, Michelle? And yes, Jackie, national anthem indeed. So now we're going to ask a bigger question. And again, we haven't even, with my students, I would not yet have exposed them to the entire work. We're focusing exclusively at the diction level. What argument, and go ahead and respond to this in the chat too, might this language make? What argument would a poet like Ferlinghetti potentially use this diction to make? We're speculating.
You're right, baseball is more than a game. As our spouses know sometimes, it's life.
Unifying force, I love it. American dream, more than one culture. Somebody put the good, the bad, and the ugly. More than an American sport. Awesome. Tina, I think about that question all the time. Microcosm of America. Microchasm. Oh, excellent. And of course, as you can imagine, I mean, you're all teachers. Your students would come up with all of these things and more. They get it. And they love responding to questions like these. And as you can also well imagine, I'm sure, by the time you get them to this stage, you've got them. They haven't seen the poem yet. They haven't heard the poem yet. But they're going to lock in. We know even from early child education that making predictions is a really good way to increase engagement. When we predict an outcome, we actually, I tell my students, think about when you're watching a Netflix series and you make a prediction. I think that guy's they're gonna take him out in the next scene. At some point he's going down, right? What happens is you start to root for your prediction and you focus more. So it's a real key to engagement. These are great responses in the chat. Let's take a look. And thanks to our good friends down the road in the Silicon Valley, even though we lost Lawrence Ferlinghetti in February, due to advances in technology, we can actually keep him around. Somebody a couple of years ago chose to record Ferlinghetti himself reading this and put it on YouTube. So I'll let you read it, but we're going to let the man himself voice it for us.
It's the World Series, and this is a former World Series team. Baseball canto. Watching baseball, sitting in the sun, eating popcorn, reading Ezra Pound. And wishing Juan Marichal would hit a hole right through the Anglo-Saxon tradition in the first canto and demolish the barbarian invaders from Los Angeles. When the San Francisco Giants take the field and everybody stands up to the national anthem with some Irish tenor's voice piped over the loudspeakers, with all the players struck dead in their places and the white umpires like Irish cops in their black suits and little black caps pressed over their hearts, standing straight and still like at some funeral of a Blarney bartender. And all facing east, as if expecting some great white hope or the founding fathers to appear on the horizon. But Willie Mays appears instead in the bottom of the first, and a roar goes up as he clouts the first one into the sun and takes off like a foot runner from Thebes. The ball is lost in the sun and maidens wail after him, but he keeps running through the Anglo-Saxon epic. And Tito Fuentes comes up, looking like a bullfighter in his tight pants and small pointed shoes, and the right field bleachers go mad with Chicanos and blacks and Brooklyn beer drinkers. Sweet Tito, sock it to him, sweet Tito. And sweet Tito puts his foot in the bucket and smacks one that don't come back at all and flees around the bases like he's escaping from the United Fruit Company. As the gringo dollar beats out the pound. And sweet Tito beats it out like he's beating out usury, not to mention fascism and anti-Semitism. And Juan Marichal comes up, and the Chicano bleachers go loco again as Juan belts the first fastball out of sight and rounds first and keeps going, and rounds second and rounds third and keeps going, and hits pay dirt to the roars of the grungy populace. As some nut presses the backstage panic button for the tape-recorded national anthem again to save the situation. But it don't stop nobody this time in their revolution round the loaded white bases. In this last of the great Anglo-Saxon epics in the territorio libre of baseball.
And of course, by now, almost any of our students would be able to connect the dots and see potentially any number of arguments here, but it's clearly much bigger than baseball. I think, I know Nikki is at least with us in spirit, if not actually with us, but I think that might be Brandon who pointed out that a lot of that is in the delivery. I think, yes, Ferlinghetti's voice really contributes to this. And poetry is voice for sure. But I think the idea of, again, when we're adopting a rhetorical approach, we want to get at the argument, and certainly voice contributes to it. Even when he says some nut, I have seen misinterpretations. In fact, even in the chat on this very YouTube video, somebody accused Ferlinghetti of being a racist, and there was a back and forth in the chat about Ferlinghetti himself. And you better read it a little more closely. Again, as you listen to it, I think it's pretty clear that he is indeed advocating for the territorio libre of baseball, using our game as a metaphor for freedom. It's bigger than America. And it's a perfect segue or entry point to the deeper place that mi amigo Carlos is about to take us all. And we'll save questions. I know who reads Ezra Buck. Well, you know what, a poet laureate might. You might see that in San Francisco. You never know.
It's not lost on Ferlinghetti. Probably knew Pound's politics being fascist, and he beats the pound out of. You know what I mean? That's no accident. He knew what he was doing.
Oh, and I'm sure Lawrence Ferlinghetti he probably wrote this while sitting in the bleachers at Candlestick Park reading Ezra Pound. So at this point, we're going to return to our larger theme, and we'll definitely have some time for questions and conversation after Carlos's piece, if you want to come back to this poem. But I'm just teeing it up. Carlos is our cleanup hitter. So this idea of poetry is insurgent art, and this is more than the rhetorical approach. Now we're going to focus on audience. All you, Carlos.
All right. Welcome. How you doing? Welcome. All right. This is poetry. Like I said, speaking to and for the marginalized. Man, about 6 years ago or so, one of the school district bigwigs came to my school. I was in a nice, comfortable school, all right? And they asked me, would I leave? I'm like, what? And then, he told me you could stay at this comfortable school. It's maybe the most high achieving school in Georgia at the time, or you could do our work. I said, we're having an influx of immigrants. Our county is not prepared for it. We need an English teacher who speaks Spanish, and you're the only one in Cobb County who can do that. All right. And so what happens is it took me about 2 minutes to decide. I'm like, all right, boss, let's go. And so what I had to do is travel to different schools, talk to immigrant population, families, teachers, and I realized why they wanted an English teacher, help them get into college. So this is a picture of the end of that first year of taking a group of students, mostly recent Honduran immigrants and other Central Americans, to come near their first college campus ever. It was a trip of a day to a college campus, all right? And months before, I was invited to the school and I met them. And I posed a question to them. I said, which is the easier journey? All right, and many of them had done this journey. And I said, leaving Honduras and everything that's in Honduras, all right, put $8 in your pocket, cross into Mexico, that itself is a difficult trip, go through Mexico, cross into the United States, through the desert, and get to Georgia. Or, exactly, Enrico's journey, or make it through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, get through high school, and actually these kids are now 11th graders. Make it through high school and graduate high school with decent grades. And they all unanimously said the trip from Honduras was easier. They didn't think they could make it to 12th grade. And I knew we had a lot of work to do. Okay. And so, so what I'll do here is we're going to go into Felipe Herrera's poem, Border Bus, which answers asks some of the questions that the kids were doing. All right. I'm going to ask something of you all in the audience, or let's go back to the questions. What I want them to do is in the chat, you want to be looking for what you think is the poet's message. Okay, what you think is the poet's message.
I think I dropped a slide from this. Sorry about that.
No, yeah, no worries, Jim. No worries, Jim. Just like, what message are they trying to convey? Kind of like the way a prompt would ask. And then see if you can, and you can also do it, pick up a couple pieces of your line of reasoning, rhetorical choices that would support the message you think you see in the poem.
When we first started working on this, I told Carlos, most of you know Carlos, and one of the things we all love about Carlos is that he teaches AP English language and composition in both English and in Spanish. And I have always wanted to hear him in a public forum like this toggle between the two. So here we go. This is
from Juan Felipe Herrera. He was a border bus. ¿A dónde vamos? Where are we going? Speak in English or the guard is going to come. ¿A dónde vamos? Where are we going? Speak in English or the guard is going to get us, hermana. ¿Pero qué hicimos? What do we do? Speak in English. Come on. Nomás si unas pocas palabras. I just know a few words. You better figure it out, hermana. The guard is right there. See the bus driver. Tantos días, ni sabíamos para dónde íbamos. So many days and we didn't even know where we were headed. I know where we're going, where we always go. To some detention center, to some fingerprinting hall or cube, some warehouse after warehouse. Pero ya nos investigaron, ya cruzamos y ya nos cacharon. Los federales del bordo, ¿qué más quieren? But they already questioned us. We already crossed over. They already grabbed us at the Border Patrol. What more do they want? We're on the bus now. That is all. ¿A dónde vamos? Te digo, salí desde Honduras y no hemos comido nada. ¿Y dónde vamos? A dormir. Where are we going? I'm telling you, I came from Honduras. We haven't eaten anything. And where are we going to sleep? I don't want to talk about it just now. Tell them that you came from nowhere. I come from nowhere. We crossed the border from nowhere. And now you and me and everybody else here on a bus to nowhere. You got it? Pero por eso nos vinimos para salir de la nada. That's why we came, to leave all that nothing behind. When the bus stops, there will be more nothing. We're here, hermana. Y ellas, esa gente, ¿quiénes son? No quieren que siga el camión. No quieren que sigamos. Están bloqueando el bus. ¿A dónde vamos ahora? Those people who are there, they don't want the bus to keep going. They don't want us to keep going. They're now blocking the bus. So where do we go? What? He tardado 45 días para llegar acá. No fue fácil, hermana. 45 días desde Honduras con los coyotes, lo que se bueno, ya saben lo que hicieron a las chicas ahí, mira, enfrente de nosotros. Pero ¿qué íbamos a hacer? Y los trenes, como dirá, hermana, cientos de nosotros como gallinas, como topos en jaulas y verduras pudriéndose en los trenes de miles de, ¿me oyes? De miles. Y si resbalaban de los techos y los desiertos de Arizona y de Texas sin sed y hambre, dos cosas, sed y hambre, días tras días, ahí, ahora, aquí, en los camiones, y quién sabe a dónde. Vamos, hermana, fíjate, vengo desde Brownsville, donde nos amarraron, y ahora en California, pero todavía nos entramos, y todavía el bordo está por delante. It took me 47 days to get here. It wasn't easy, hermana. 45 days from Honduras with the coyotes. The ones, well, you know what they did to the chicas. Right there in front of us. So what were we supposed to do? And the trains, how can I tell you, hermana, hundreds of us like chickens, like gophers, in cages and vegetables, rotten on trains of thousands, you hear me, thousands, and they slid from the rooftops in the deserts of Arizona and Texas. Thirst and hunger, two things. Thirst and hunger day after day, hermana. And now here on this bus of who knows where we are going, hermana. Listen, I come from Brownsville, where they tied us up, and now in California, but still we're not inside, and still the border lies ahead of us. I told you to speak in English, even un poquito. The guard is going to think we're doing something. People are screaming outside. They want to push the bus back. Pero ¿para dónde le damos, hermana? Por eso me vine. Le quebraron las piernas a mi padre. Las pandillas mataron a mi hijo. Solo quieren que estos estemos juntos. Tantos años, hermana, separados. But where do we go, hermana? That's why I came here. They broke my father's legs. Gangs killed my son. I just want us to be together. So many years, hermana, pulled apart. What? Mi madre me dijo que los más importante es la libertad, la bondad y las buenas acciones por el próximo. My mother told me that the most important thing is freedom, kindness, and doing good for others. What are you talking about? I told you to be quiet. La libertad viene desde muy adentro. Ahí precede todo el dolor de todo el mundo. El momento en que pudrimos ese dolor, nosotros extrañas seremos libres. Y en ese momento tenemos que llenarnos de todo el dolor, de todos los seres, para liberarlos a ellos mismos. Freedom comes from deep inside. All the pain of the world lives there. The second we cleanse that pain from our guts, we shall be free. And in that moment, we have to fill ourselves with all the pain of all beings to free them, all of them. The guard is coming. Well, now what? Maybe they'll take us to another detention center. We'll eat, we'll have a floor, a blanket, toilet water, and each other for a while. No somos nada y venimos de nada, pero esa nada lo es todo si la nutres de amor. Por eso venceremos. We are nothing and we come from nothing, but that is nothing is everything. You feed it with love, and that's why we will triumph. We are everything, hermana, because we come from everything. All right.
Carlos, wow. I mean, you didn't get to see the chat, and I know you have follow-up questions. Before we go to those, you actually have questions for the chat. The rhetorical lesson is still part of this. I just want to point out, we left the citation information there because, as you can see, this was a City Lights publication, and that's what, when Carlos told me this was the poem he wanted to use, I had to go there. That was my tribute to Herrera y Barrera. And that was awesome, Carlos. Just fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
So here we go. What do you want to do with this now, my friend?
Yeah, let's see if you want to put some in the chat. Anybody want to brave enough, open up, say something? What message is Herrera is trying to convey in this poem? Now, if you want me to pick somebody, I can.
Well,
that, as a teacher. All right, sure. Jennifer Fletcher, what do you think the message Herrera is trying to convey in this border bus poem? All right.
I keep thinking about the complexity of perspectives and how difficult the situation is, and the different levels of need and concern, so that those voices kind of talking over each other and in the present moment and in the back, and getting more of the backstory of how much is in that one space.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Alfonso Carrera, what do you think? All right. Mi hermano, what do you think is the message in this poem?
Well, hermano, first of all, nicely done.
Thank you.
God, so many places to go, but I mean, the idea of that liminal space of the borderland, right, where identities exist and are fluid, right, and that's kind of where these people are. That's where they're traveling through, right, and somebody mentioned actually earlier that shift at the end from the nowhere to the everywhere. And I think that has a lot to do with it as well. It just, you got me. You should have texted me before you did this because,
It's no fun.
Brownsville, right?
I'm surprised Jim didn't, but, being from there, being from that place,
Yeah.
right? And
Bra-
watching this
Brownsville,
happen.
right?
Yeah, I'm from, that's where I was born and raised. Just listening to my mother tell those stories, right? Because, my mother was one of these people, right? Not from Honduras, but from Mexico. And so I think, but I think that idea of that liminal space that a lot of our students inhabit, right? That's where they are, the betwixt and between, that kind of really is kind of synonymous with that borderline, right? Is really, really important here. And that's just, it floored me, man. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
this is the week we're going deep. Alfonso, we saw Brandon do it last night. So I wanted to make sure we both wanted you to be hit hard by this. I mean, this is,
It worked.
if we're looking at the chat too, Carlos, there's several great responses here. We are nothing and everything at the same time. Hope is the seed of life that keeps us moving through the suffering. Borders as places, borders as language. Those who come to America are not coming to steal jobs. They take great risks to come here. All of these mosaic sessions, by the way, are starting to come together here. I don't know if you've all noticed that, but I'm hearing not only Brandon from last night, but Jackie and John Muscatello and so many of the other people who've been part of this great slow conference this year. There's more, of course, right, amigo?
Oh, absolutely. All right.
When we teach rhetoric, we go beyond just the message.
All right. Let's. So how do you know? What are some rhetorical choices in that poem that help back up that message? All right. And all right. Let me pick my friend Wendy from North Carolina. Wendy Scruggs. What do you think?
Hi.
All right.
Oops, hold on. I was trying to get my camera on for you. I think I'm working. Okay. What am I answering, sir?
Yeah. What are to come up? I saw your message that you put in with the poem. What are some things in the poem? Some rhetorical choices.
Well, definitely that trying to and I think a lot of people mention that wrestling and trying to discover what new identity you have to achieve the ultimate goal. And especially since I mostly do lit now, I used to do like I can't help but get past this is, classic hero's journey, and it almost seems like this speaker that keeps saying speaking English is serving almost like that mentor role. And they're trying to cross that threshold to grow and to achieve it. And they can see that it's there, but aren't quite there yet and aren't sure how to get over it. It's like they're stuck there. And I think that back and forth between the languages and the repetition. And again, many people pointed out the last part where it shifts and says, that you're nothing, and stressing how you have to minimize yourself, but it's everything. And that paradox is just very fitting for so many people's experiences, I think. And everybody said that is a universal experience. Maybe not immigration per se, but trying to find an identity, trying to find your path, trying to find where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to be at in your place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. All right, Jackie Stallworth, I'm calling at you because every single workshop I've heard you in, you say it's about people's humanity, right? What do you think about that? What's some rhetorical choices for that one? She there. You knew I was going to call on you, right? I always call on you. No? She may not have heard it. Okay.
She's active in the chat. I know that she's in
Oh,
there.
no, I'm here. I'm here.
There you are.
She needed a second to think. I forgot. I gotta keep
No,
that.
no, no. I was thinking about, someone mentioned it before. I think it's that humanizing people, and when that repetition of, speak English, right? That made me feel some kind of way in terms of, I think I understood the message, but I had mixed, it could have been a mixed message, like someone saying, speak English because it doesn't belong here, right?
Yeah.
And that made me feel some kind of way when you hear kids speaking English and we're like, speak English, as if that's the only language, as if it's the most superior language. So that repetition had me kind of thinking.
Very nice.
Some kind of,
Okay.
Carlos, what did your students do with this?
Yeah, let me, this is now in my own class from a couple years ago. And I with students in 10th grade, we did a bilingual version of the one pager. And so as you can see, they're trying to put in a bit of a, this is a 10th grade version. They're a year before they got to AP Lang. And so they're doing a rhetorical analysis of the poem. This one's in Spanish, as you can see. All right, it's nicely done. You see the train. The train is that's infamous in Mexico. The train where the migrants are on top of, and many people die. All right, let's look at another one of these. All right, yeah, you can see this one's in English. They're putting out some of the main ideas. People from many countries without a visa prefer to go to the U.S. by buses, trains, and even walking. So they put some ideas here of what their vision of the poem is. And then on the last one, you can see what they're doing here. It's pretty powerful, some of the things that they write. The next one coming up, Jim.
Yeah, I just might, I'm having trouble getting the slide deck to actually show me that slide for some reason. There's the one.
Yeah, there it is. And so they've actually put a claim. I don't know if you can make that bigger. Remember how you did that? We'll see if not.
It's full size, at least.
Okay. All right. Oh, you're right. All right. Let me get, it's my fault. Yeah. So they put claims and counterclaims, and the counterclaim is pretty powerful because it goes against, it's what people want the immigrants to become, this voiceless thing, this, thing of fear. And so, I know even in my current school, I've had students who have taken this walk. I've read a college essay where I had to read about the student who saw both his uncles get shot in Honduras right in front of him. All right. So so sometimes we choose poetry instead of a deep nonfiction piece as a way to talk about these things. And so this happens here. Students do a decent job with this.
I see, we talk about teaching skills. I mean, obviously this is a very powerful poem and your reading of it, amazing. But clearly your students learned some rhetorical thinking skills.
Absolutely.
By studying this poem. I mean, we're looking at, I can see all kinds of language from the CED, from the AP Lang curriculum right there. Reasons for the claim, counterclaim, we're in that claims and evidence category, reasoning and organization. Very, very cool, Carlos. And thank you to your students for sharing their work too.
Oh yeah, it's very nice. Thank you. All right.
So that's just two strategies for using poetry to teach rhetoric. I've spun that now. And certainly there are others. We invite you, by the way, if you have some that you've used in your courses, Carlos and I love talking about these things, but there's a lot of great teachers on this Zoom. If you have any strategies or resources that you'd like to share in the chat, we would love that. At this point, we've got still a few minutes left, and the floor is open to any questions, comments, anything at all.
So just outstanding work, gentlemen, and we aren't done. I know you want to open it up to questions. I want to encourage everyone to use the reaction in Zoom to raise their hands. That is really the least chaotic way of doing it. And if you pop up the question, if you pop up your hand, you will pop up to the top of the screen and we'll be able to select you. So while we're waiting on people to form their questions, I do want to call someone out. And if you don't want to speak, Susan, that's fine. But Susan K., you got a great comment here in the chat talking about the students, the experience you have with students who are teaching ESL. Would you mind coming off of mute and just talking a little bit about that, sharing that with us? Because I have a feeling your experience there could really inform other people in this conversation too.
Okay, well, I do teach ESL, and I have actually taught mainly Hondurans. And they come here and they share their struggle of how they've gone from one place to the other. And some actually young people that have fled for their lives for freedom. And then they get here and they're insulted constantly and they don't know what to do. And they fought for freedom to come for freedom. And yet now they have no voice. They don't know how to communicate with people. And the people they try to communicate with, they don't want to hear them. And it's just been, it's really a sad battle that they go through. And a lot of them are young people that come here and they don't have their families. They leave their families behind for various reasons, politically and political reasons in other areas that way. But it is, I find it a very difficult place sometimes to be in as an American trying to help somebody. And yet these students are fearful of now the place they thought where they were going to have freedom. They're fearful of who we are. That's just been one struggle that I've personally have felt, and they feel 1,000 times greater than I do. So if that helps or not.
Susan, thank you for doing the work. I mean, ESL is one of the highest forms of teaching. All right, it's way up there. What you do is God's work, and
Thank you.
I appreciate you doing that. You know. And
Susan, thank you for letting me put you on the spot to share that, because as I predicted, it was really great to hear from someone doing the work, as Carlos says. I have another person I want to call out here, and they have a great idea, and the problem with me calling them out is they just got this idea. So I don't want everybody to think it's fully fleshed out. But Tiffany Wilkinson, could you talk about the idea you share in the chat and kind of explain it to everybody, and what the possibilities are you imagine for that?
So I was thinking, I teach outside of San Francisco and myself, and so I have a very large population of students that are either bilingual, multilingual, a lot of students that speak a variety of Asian languages or Indian languages, and we're wanting to always bring in more ways for them to be able to share their identity. And language is, of course, a part of their identity. And so just the model of that poem and the idea of having a poem that could be crafted both in English and in something else, in whatever their language is, and the ability to both allow that to be an avenue to share part of their identity, but also present an argument. And then students could then be asked to rhetorically analyze the poems, because they're going to be able to have both the English and the other language. So I just thought it would be an interesting way to bring in that identity, as well as to allow them to practice their argumentative skills in a different way.
Tiffany, you're in San Jose, aren't you?
I am. I teach in Fremont.
I think I remember. Were you in the TCU? Weren't you? I think we,
Yes,
yeah, I mentioned that at the beginning of this. And of course, Carlos was part of that too. So there's several people I recognize here from the TCU workshop. Thanks for coming back and joining us again.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and Tiffany, your idea has gotten a couple of good responses there. I think it would be great if you wanted to try that. And I'm going to throw this out there, Tiffany, because a lot of people don't realize this, but if you try it, or if any of you try something like it, let Carlos and Jim know, let me know, because we have at least 3 sessions at NCTE this coming November that started with sessions at Mosaic last summer and teachers trying things. And so take a shot, try them, see what they work, and then, write a conference proposal. That's what it means to take the work you're doing and make it matter to other people, because so many of you have such great ideas and you show up and you do the work every day, and it's so much trouble to go out and do a conference or something. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that could learn from the ideas some of you all are sharing here. So thank you, Tiffany, for sharing that. Let me put you on the spot. I think it's excellent work. Same thing for Susan. I'm not seeing any other real hands pop up here, but Benjamin Stroud, you've got a really good comment that I don't know if you want to expound upon it here. But I love what you're saying about identity and belongingness. And I think it's especially important when you think about an AP course and identity and belongingness in this open access setting. So Ben, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, I mean, I was just listening, and I mean, both poems are just profoundly just influential and very powerful. And it just comes when I was listening, I kept on thinking, because I'm a Walt Whitman fan, I kept on thinking, what would Walt Whitman think about this? And because it's all about the identity and how, especially with immigrants coming in, clawing their way to here and just being silenced. And especially now, especially the last 4 years and stuff like that. So, I mean, it is all about identity. I mean, if you take poetry from across the world, starting BC to 2021, it goes back to, we all want a sense of identity, and we all want to be accepted for our identity. And I was looking at something on Facebook today about, and I don't know how I'd flush this out, about students researching their name. Where did their name come from? Who has had their name also? And what does the name, how is it symbolic about a personality and stuff like that? But I mean, I just a rush of ideas in my brain, but it's identity. It goes back to that. It goes back to, you came from nowhere. Repeat that. But you did come from somewhere, and you're trying to make a new idea. It's the Jay Gatsby thing. You're trying to recreate stuff. So that's just the mesh of my mind right now.
All right.
I love
That's-
that.
Go ahead,
Love
Carlos.
it, Ben.
No, go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I was going to say that, that I love that you're having that rush, because, this is billed as an AP Lang session this hour. I know there's a lit one coming up, and many of you teach both, but one of the reasons Carlos and I wanted to do this tonight is that a lot of our colleagues in AP Lang they're afraid to bring poetry or any form of artistic or fictional writing into their courses. And when you look at the CED language, one of the lines in it says that works of imaginative prose are appropriate for the course only if they were designed to accomplish a rhetorical purpose, which appears restrictive until you start trying to. My department did this one day. We started listing titles that actually are fiction titles that are designed to accomplish a rhetorical purpose. And we quickly realized that we couldn't think of one that didn't or wasn't. So that's actually liberating language. So I want to second what Brandon said too. If any of you have been inspired in any way by any of this, and you're thinking of ways to do this in your courses, please let Brandon or Carlos or me know, because we want to get that out there. We want people to know that you can and should use imaginative prose in rhetoric courses. It's a great way to teach rhetoric, and it's a great way to find content that meets your students where they are.
Well, there's a book that says everything is an argument and everything is a rhetoric. Every poem out there is rhetoric, and you can do it in a Lang and in a Lit, because I find it, and I will say that a lot of schools do this. I find it disheartening that we have kids, because I teach both AP Lit and Lang. We have kids coming into Lit that have not really learned poetry, if they're lucky, since they're sophomore, maybe their freshman year. So I think that's something that needs to kind of be reevaluated.
Jim, this is a perfect time to say, I would suggest a book called Teaching Literature Rhetorically.
That's right. Jennifer Fletcher is in the house. There it is, Brandon.
This
There
is
you
the
go.
book right here.
Right.
I just
there.
happen to have it right here.
So do I.
And Jennifer, I don't know if Jennifer's still on the line, but
She's there.
yeah, it's great. And I could also plug I mean, my graduate work was
Mine's on the shelf.
my graduate work was in the rhetoric of fiction. And because so many times those who can embrace the art of literature are those who do not have a voice in the popular culture or the mainstream. And they have to use that to make some commentary. And I focused on Richard Wright. We all know what he was doing at his time. So it's beautiful. It's a great approach. And Jennifer's book has some great approaches for teaching in this too. So
And
check it out.
another thing to remember here, if you teach AP Lang, that's not the only thing you teach. All of us, we all teach fiction courses too. So one of the things I love about the rhetorical approach to imaginative text is that it helps me stay grounded as a teacher. If I'm teaching a fiction based, maybe I've got 2 sections of, say, whatever it is, African-American lit or whatever, world lit, and then 2 sections of a rhetoric course, I can actually teach the same skills in those courses at the same time. And it's easier on my planning if I'm focusing on things like audience or any number of rhetorical concepts. So, having a rhetorical approach to fiction is really helpful in multiple ways. And activities like what Carlos and I modeled tonight they will help you bring fiction into your rhetoric classes, but they will also help you bring rhetoric into your fiction classes. And that helps me maintain my sanity as a teacher, whatever I've got left. Remember, I'm whelmed.
So we are at the top of the hour. I know people were dropping to join the lit session.
Yeah.
So I do want to thank you, gentlemen. Of course, if you want to stay on for a few minutes, everyone usually does. If you want
Yeah,
to just
of
chat
course.
and debrief. But thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to tell you guys you should take this show on the road because you all play off of one another like a comedy duo of old, man. You all are nailing it.
That's my.
Go ahead.
Oh, he's my double play partner.
That's right. Yeah, we
It
love
is
working together.
It's a pleasure to watch you guys work together. I'm going to share my screen again. As a reminder, we have a keynote coming up next Sunday with Dr. David Kirkland, a former professor of mine, outstanding speaker. Everybody loved the speakers last year, but when we were asking people who they would like to see back for this year, David Kirkland was one of the the most requested. And so we're lucky that he is agreeing to come back for us. And then also on an odd night, but that following Tuesday, Trevor Packer, the Senior Vice President of College Board himself, is going to be speaking, just the way calendars worked out. And then our final session, it's not that far away. We officially announced last week that Elizabeth Acevedo, who I have a professional crush on, is going to be our keynote speaker, not just reading, but also talking about her craft and talking about her approach. Next week, you will be excited to see that Dr. Duku Anokye will be speaking with us about not just the Chief Reader report, but her long haul as a Chief Reader. And she has promised not to say anything bad about me because I'm the one who asked her to be a Chief Reader and then left my job. So we joke about it often, and we're very good friends. So thank you all again so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you're welcome to hang out, like I said, for a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm putting my email in the chat. No.
I just did.
Yeah. As well.
You didn't use your school one, huh? You went, good for you.
Yeah, no. Being polite tonight.
Fellas, that was fantastic. Thank you so much.
It was
it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Hey, you got to redo it because I came late.
No,
Oh, yeah, Dan was talking about that in the middle of it. So we're going to have to restart here in a sec.
Oh,
Danny,
I'm
you're
in
all right.
California. I got my hours screwed up.
You're time zone vertigo, brother. You'll get the recording. You'll get the recording of it by registering.
Awesome.
And Dan has said that if it's the White Sox and the Giants in the World Series, I can come over to Chicago and stay with them there, right?
You better.
Oh, nice.
You better.
There.
I guess I have to go to Jim's house.
That's right.
This on San Francisco side, right?
Yeah.
I'll use Andres as cover.
Don't count Brandon's Reds out yet. They're still in the.
Don't
they're-
count
they
them
got a
out.
shot. Yep.
Don't
No,
count
they
them out. I'm
got-
not going
they-
to say
they-
anything about Alfonso's Rangers, but
No,
I-
don't,
you know,
don't.
I don't have to. They do it for themselves.
We have a nice warehouse. That's all we can say.
See,
I can't-
Jackie's she's had enough of this baseball talk. She's like, I gotta go.
No,
You-
I'm going to the lit. Carlos, you guys work real good together. Like y'all a good team.
Thank you.
That was
We're
that-
we're almost as good as that equity video that we made. The one
That's
about
right.
questions.
You know, I
Everybody
can't,
loves
you know
that.
what, Carlos? I can't believe you were cheating on me with,
I know, I know.
I thought you were stuck with me forever. Now
That's
I-
what
Right. Here-
now I see you got another sidekick. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Dan and I usually work together, so he feels like I'm cheating on him with.
That's
Right, so
Hey.
Jackie, we gotta get together, you and I.
You know
There you
what, Daniel, I think you and I should have like a run off against them. Like,
We're gonna have to do something.
we're gonna have to do something.
Awesome.
I'm sure we'll win, but we'll let you all.
I know, it would be unfair. If I got you, Jackie, it'd be unfair.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of getting a ringer there. That's
All right, guys,
Hey,
I'm gonna go to lit.
Thanks for being here, Jackie.
That
good
was
seeing you,
awesome,
Jackie.
guys. I appreciate
you.
y'all.
Yours was awesome.
Hey,
too. Thank you.
Susan, before I forget, I want to make sure I put up a fight at my school so that I would teach 2 ESOL classes next semester purposely for that. So I didn't want to be just known as the AP guy, but I'm teaching 2 ESOL classes next semester. First time I taught them in a while, but I thought that was,
good, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Carlos, I'm telling you, man, hearing you read that, go back and forth like that. When we rehearsed it earlier, he wasn't as emotional. I mean, you were fired up. You had the
No.
explanation was-
That was good, man.
oh, it was
Really?
awesome.
Thank you.
I'm so
thank you.
glad there's a recording of that. I can't wait to watch that again.
Yeah, email it right on to me. I'm
You'll
so
get
mad
it.
at myself. I'm like, what?
Dan, it's also on that AP Lit chat. You know, the same one that has all the other
Oh.
big sessions. They're all there.
Yeah, they're all there. Well, when you guys started texting me, I was like, wait, there's still an hour before this thing. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm stupid. I did the same thing, Dan, so don't worry about it.
And that's how I do it in class sometimes. I don't let people give them time to think. I just go, here's the question. Answer honestly. That's why I hit you up without like knowing. So it was really good answers from the heart. You
They were
know,
really good, man. That's really good.
Yeah. And
Yeah, it reminded me, and Brandy, you remember this, when we were trying to get more well, for myself, more Chicano writers on the exam.
I remember when you came and talked to
Brandon
me
kept
about
telling
it.
me the same thing. There's too much Spanish. There's too much Spanish. Because that's all the essays I was reading. That's kind of what they were. But because I'm starting to teach Chicano studies again in the fall. So and it turns out that it's a year-long class. So right away I reached out to folks here, and so they got me hooked up with the folks that do the Chicano studies at UT San Antonio, and where I studied for a while. And so they've got a certificate program that I'm going to do. So I got to practice my Spanish again, man. You're going to have to help me, Carlos.
that's why I got to work on the student. The students help me out a lot. So normally what I do in the classroom is I pick 2 students to read this, an English part and a Spanish part. And they go back.
That's a good idea.
So it's
Good idea.
Well, y'all, I have got to go. I've got
Yeah,
to
no, thank you,
take care of some
Brandon.
things, but y'all hang out. I'm delighted that it all worked out, and sorry I was a little late.
no
thank you.
worries. No worries.
You know,
Yeah,
and,
it was fun.
Good luck in Happy Valley or right in in Pennsylvania. All right.
That's right. Yeah, but it's a delight to see you guys all working together, and I'd love to hang out, but gotta get. Thank you.
Take care,
Thank you.
Brandon.
Bye, gentlemen.
Righty.
Hey,
All right.
boys.
Yeah. And then I got to go down to I have a meeting in I guess it's in 40 minutes, but
Yeah, because you got your APSI in Oregon.
it's the planning,
Can't believe
that
Joey Gallo is wearing Yankee pinstripes. What?
Don't get me started, bro. Don't get me started.
It's not like he was some old man or something like that.
They
right?
freaking, they sold us out, man. They sold us out. They sold us out. They got their freaking warehouse and they sold us out. And it's just, it's the Jerry Jones move. That's exactly what Jerry did, right? He brought in Parcells, got himself a stadium, and then he booted him. The same thing. I mean, it's a very same thing. I'll never forget that. I think Jimbo, I think I told you this a while ago. But when I took Isabela the first time, I took her out there to the stadium. We came in from another direction and we were kind of scoping it around and it's like, where is it? And then when I looked out, it's like, I found it. And I was like, I'm looking at it. And Isa says, why did they put a big old warehouse there? That's an ugly warehouse. Of course, she's my daughter. So she said, that's an ugly ass warehouse. I'm like, no, hon, that's the new stadium. She said, oh my God.
God,
That's
I hope
awful.
hopefully all of us will be in it next summer. If
Yeah, I
TCU,
hope so, boys. I mean, that's been 2 years already. It's been, I mean,
Which
I
means
sent
it'll
that
be
picture
free.
out, just, that was it was so fun. And, I didn't even go that time when you guys went to the ball game.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, we got to do that again. Jeez,
We'll
Yeah.
always have the Tropicana Dome, huh?
no kidding. Well, I
Yeah.
tell you what,
They're
what
in first
I do
place
know,
right
I think
Yeah.
what I heard was, and I asked both Lily and Dooku, that leadership is going to be on site. And Carlos, you
Oh.
probably know this, probably.
No, they're not. There's a lot they're not saying.
Yeah, so I think I think, I mean, Dooku and Lily will kind of tell me what the plan is, but who knows, between now and then. And the way the magic money floats around in College Board, somebody might say, oh, you know what? We save so much money doing everything online. It'll be a rock and a hard place for everybody.
Now, there was a time in the I could say this at the DC meeting where Pete said a good comment, and I said, Alfonso would say, "Good job, Pedro. Good job." He started laughing.
I talked to him yesterday, I think, and he's like, "Man, a lot of work." I'm like, "Yeah, brother. Hold on to your butt." It's
Yeah.
but, he's happy, man. I'm glad he's there. Michelle said
Michelle's there.
Michelle's there, so that's really awesome too, man. She's fantastic. So.
Yeah, she didn't know I lived in the Atlanta area. All right, so
Oh, she didn't? Oh, yeah,
No,
that's where
no,
she
no.
is. Didn't she?
I mentioned like,
Spelman?
yeah,
Yeah.
where it came up is I mentioned that one of my students is going to Spelman, one of the really nice students I had. So she told me to
Make him go meet in Atlanta.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because Lily likes to stay at the Ritz-Carlton there. That was one of the times I got in trouble with Jeanette. I remember I sent her we had little place cards at lunch, right? And had a little Ritz-Carlton on it. I said, look, honey, here's my lunch. Like, shut up.
Get your ass in the Hampton Inn.
Yeah.
I just got text messages from 2 colleagues, Dan, saying they screwed up the time and they just tried to find it and it wasn't, you know what I mean? So there's I'm glad it's been recorded. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I am too.
Brother, you're
they
right
had
up my alley too, as you guys know.
that recording is going to be it's going to be a huge hit because of your reading, Carlos. That was I knew that was the right
That was
thing.
really good.
No,
That was
I
really
went back.
good, man.
I went back and forth. I said, "Should we do video?" And I said, "You can't do 2 videos. You can't." Do
Yeah, he was going to
Yeah.
have Herrera read. He was going to play the Herrera version of it, and then he said, "Well, maybe we go back and forth, and I would read the English parts." And I was like, "Dude, I really want to hear you read both languages. That's what I want to hear. That's the
Yeah, that was really good, man. That was really good.
Nah, thank you.
And just, inside note, if we were, Isabella and I were talking about this earlier, that I never changed my name because my mother's maiden name is Herrera. And that's really who my family, that's really who my family is,
Yeah.
right? Because my father just was never there. I mean, never a part of anything. But, and I think my sister and I talked about it when I was in high school. She told me, yeah, well, because, my uncle and all my cousins were Herrera. And, so, Familia Herrera, that was, but I was the odd man out, right?
So
then we forgot about it.
Should your name be Alfonso Correa Herrera?
My name? No, not really. I think I would have changed it. If I would have remembered, I think, with, in time, I think I would just change it. Because again, all I knew was Herrera, right? And I mean,
The next door neighbors growing up were Herreras.
Yeah, and I never knew any of my father's family, like ever. And there was a Facebook group a couple of years ago that I kind of got hooked into, but nobody had ever heard of my father. So I was like, yeah. Yeah, and so that's pretty wild. But all right, boys, I got a jet.
All right.
All righty, good
Carol,
seeing you
time.
guys.
Good to
Carlos,
see you,
this was a
man.
Yeah,
blast. Thank
at least I got
That
a
was
chance to
awesome.
see you anyhow,
Oh,
guys. I
thank you,
can't wait to
thank
see your video.
Yeah,
Nicely
and
done, boys.
give Gina
Thank
a
you.
hug, man, huh? She probably
Yeah,
said-
I will, Jim. Okay.
Oh, yeah, give
Take care,
Gina our
guys.
best, man.